We will be hosting one of the deans of the top business school, Bill Balding. Will be talking later about why now is a great time for business school. And of course, as the schools gear up for the admissions cycle of 2021, 2022, they barely get to catch their breath. Melissa was saying that they've already welcomed full-time students at Emory. Naz is heading down to South Florida for orientation sessions. So, where is the work-life balance in this? It's just a 12-month rolling cycle, but we're delighted that you can all join us at Centre Court. And perhaps we can briefly start by reflecting on another very busy year, and of course the joy of bringing in those incoming classes, and then of course what next year might look like. Melissa, having just welcomed that class, it's been a busy application cycle, great time to go back to business school. So what have you seen as you reflect on the last year, applicants from all over the world that are now joining you at Emory?
Absolutely. It was just delightful to see all of their smiling, excited faces in the building together. And even though we're still wearing masks in the building, it was exciting just to see that everyone existed from the neck down. They all have actual bodies. They all, there's some students who I've gotten to know over Zoom over the past year, and they showed up and I was like, wow, you are much, much taller than I ever would have thought. And so it's been a real just fun time. And I really applaud these candidates for having the wherewithal and the grit to go through this process virtually, to embrace the situation we were in and to show up to the many Zooms that we offered, to actively engage. I think we all saw kind of this learning curve of people understanding how to ask questions and when to post in the chat. And I think we all got into a really good groove and they really took advantage. We tried to provide a lot of different opportunities for students to learn about our community, which I think was the big gap. You can always look at a course catalog and understand academics, and you can, kind of read online about a leadership program, but to really feel like a community, and we talk so much about fit when it comes to an MBA program, we really amped up opportunities to engage with different people across the university in different ways. And I'm just so grateful that our candidates took advantage of that, and they leaned in as we did. And I'm so excited to see what these students can do now that they're on campus.
Right, it's sort of the silver lining of that there's been so much virtual activity and that level of engagement. You realize, of course, Melissa, that if beyond average GPAs and GMAT scores, if you did publish the average height of students coming into the Goizueta program, then you'd have anxious applicants worried that they were 2 inches taller or shorter than the rest of the students. But
I'd be on panels answering questions about what can I do to overcome my height deficiency? Yes, yeah. Thankfully, that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, there's no study class for that one. Whitney, and I apologize in my excitement and of course faces that I love and recognize, I didn't present all of you very well. Whitney is the Senior Director of Admissions at Darden. Whitney, it has been a very busy year, much like Melissa, excited to see that incoming class. Sort of a spike in applications. We often see that during an economic downturn or volatility, that people think, hey, great time to go back to business school.
Yeah, we are just in terms of what we've been seeing in application volume. The last year, prior to this admission cycle that we're just wrapping up, we had seen just a swell of interest. I think because they're, maybe counterintuitive that there was so much uncertainty, but people really seeing the value of an MBA, the opportunity to skill up, to invest in themselves as the broader sort of world and economies were a little unsettled. And so these past couple of years have definitely seen wonderful, sort of applications from candidates all over the world. And so just really great to see that sort of show of force in terms of the interest, the value in the MBA, and wanting to pursue this opportunity. So as we head into this news cycle, I think we're all going to be interested to see sort of how things unfold. We've continued with a lot of our virtual engagements as we launch the application for those interested in beginning their MBA in August of 2022. We launched our application this past May, and as Melissa was sharing earlier, we're already, well underway with recruiting events, and so we've been really energized to see that continued interest, and with so many of these virtual events, continuing, that reach of getting to engage with people all over the world has been something we've so enjoyed.
Right. Well, with Naz Erengoku as Director of Admissions at University of Florida's Warrington School, and Naz, I guess with the orientation session, much like Melissa, you actually get to see the smiling faces whose stories you read about. As you think about comparing a year ago, as we were scrambling with extended final round deadlines or an added round, to bring in that class last year. Has there been a difference where this pool of applicants perhaps have taken a little bit more time than those, as we're in the, that first wave of the pandemic 12 months ago, and really, thought very deeply about business school and sort of fit and that sense of alignment that Melissa was describing?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Matt. And I think that as we are all thinking about, pre, current, post-pandemic, right? And how the kind of just applicant themselves have not only gone through this thought process of how do I get to this position, as we know that there's so many factors that have evolved over the last 16 months, right? And I think that, compared to pre-kind of pandemic or in prior application cycles, we kind of were seeing a little bit of a lull of applications. And then of course, the uncertainty of the pandemic and the uncertainty of the market, there was a lot of hesitancy towards coming back, especially to a full-time MBA program. And that's where we saw a huge increase, with our professional, executive, and online programs. And, it was interesting because as the pandemic started, here at Warrington, we continue with this mentality of business as usual because we already had an online modality running. So we kind of thought, let's explore what we've already been really great at and execute this to our full-time and our weekend base and our executive students. And so of course, as a program, we were able to help, fill that gap, right, between what our professional, executive, and full-time students want compared to, what we've been able to deliver with our online students. But now thinking about the students who've already started at the beginning of the summer in our full-time programs and those who are starting, in the next 2 weeks, there's this resurgence of energy towards coming back to campus and to participating in in-person events. And especially, I think the conversations about how can I be involved even prior to stepping foot on this campus is a much richer conversation earlier on than what we're used to seeing. And so looking at the incoming group, we're super energized about what they will bring to the table, not only from kind of a collective whole and being able to say these individuals really thought about how an MBA will help them and how a Warrington degree will help them, and they're electively being here to give us some time to really shine, and we're excited to welcome them.
As the Associate Dean of Admissions at Fuqua, Sherry, we talk about Team Fuqua. I guess virtual Team Fuqua has also been a reality of the past year, but that same energy. We've seen in sort of previous downturns, if we go back to post-Lehman financial crisis or the dot-com bubble, that often that would have an impact on diversity. The efforts that all of your schools make in terms of gender balance in the MBA classroom and sort of issues of inclusion. Has this felt any different? Have you felt that there was still strong levels of engagement across so many diverse profiles that were looking at Fuqua?
Yeah, Matt, I do think that we were able to still see a sense of inclusion, even in a virtual capacity. I was really impressed with the way our students came together, showed up for each other in a remote capacity, and for future classes too. So we still had students, even in the virtual capacity, supporting our admissions efforts to pay it forward to bring in the next class of students. We still continue to have what we call daring dialogues and Fuqua talks and sessions on diversity and allyship, sessions on mental health. All of these really spearheaded in partnership by our students with our faculty and administration. And so for us, we also instituted implicit bias training. We have a gender equity working group, and it's formulated by students as well as administration, but it's really student driven. And they put on all kinds of really great programming, and they instituted implicit bias training, which would be mandatory for all incoming students. So that was launched last year for our students. And so, we really saw in this time of, adversity and challenge across the board for everyone, that this notion of Team Fuqua really shone through. And it was much, it really was the one thing that kind of got us through collectively as a community. We lived the values day in and day out. We were bringing out the strengths of, we saw students bringing out the best in each other, right, to move towards a common goal. In a common purpose. We instituted new curriculum as well that really focused on leadership and decency, in addition to the other qualities of a leader. And we developed opportunities for students to, I would say, participate in what we call leadership labs. So these opportunities to go, think about crisis management. They were put in, our MBA Student Association presidents were put into situations where they needed to lead their classmates in unprecedented times, right? And so they were actually getting really great, lessons learned and ability to kind of flex those muscles real time in very challenging ways that otherwise perhaps they would not have been able to have that level of opportunity, right? In pre-COVID days where you just go through the 2 years and it's very expected in terms of what you are encountering. This time of pandemic really stretched people and allowed our students to really develop some skills, especially around leading others through adversity, having difficult conversations, really helping to support people from a mental health perspective in ways that they could never have imagined, but in ways that really are making them even much more prepared to get back out in the work world to encounter some of the same kinds of situations in a very different environment than when they came into the program. Right. And so it was very real.
It must be wonderful for all of you, given that you're looking for these sort of characteristics and how they might face adversity, or the agility that they've all shown. Because Melissa, it's at the heart of your work. As you sort of compare last year to this year, and there's been a change of political administration, do you get the sense, Melissa, that an international market that perhaps had sort of held off on their plans, are they sort of re-emerging and expressing their interest to join you in Atlanta?
Absolutely. And honestly, I don't know that the decline in our enrollment of international students was really tied much more to visas and travel restrictions and pandemic issues than it was to a desire to be here. I think the desire existed. We had a lovely group of international students who deferred last year and are here now, which has been great. And we also saw a strong showing of international applicants who are new to the pool as well. And so there's a little bit of a balancing act there, but we've returned, last year we enrolled about 19% international in our full-time 2-year class. This year we're back in the low 30%. So, I feel like we've right-sized that again and are excited. We did see an interesting kind of spike in the variety of countries that are applying. And so we've seen some new countries that we haven't had apply in the past, applied this year. Obviously, I think all the schools here today and most schools I'm aware of really value that global perspective and the international experience that those students bring to the classroom as part of the overall experience. And so I'm thrilled to have those students back in numbers that we feel like are really healthy for the community, and to see them able to engage in a way. I think virtual was especially hard for them given the time zone challenges and things like that. And so the in-person experience is really gonna help them to have the very best MBA experience that they can.
Those Friday morning coffee chats at Darden, Whitney, will take on an added value of importance that everyone is sort of face to face again. Similar to what Melissa was describing, have you seen that there's been an ongoing international dialogue, but perhaps with changing outlooks on H-1B visas, for example, that there's a renewed sort of confidence and many more international applicants?
Yeah, very similar to Melissa in terms of our international students that had hoped to start last year needing to put things on hold, defer. And so it's been wonderful to see many of them moving to Charlottesville this summer and now, at this moment, getting to begin their Darden journey. But I think from what we're hearing from our career colleagues, those opportunities for employment in the US look strong. And so feeling like there is, this is certainly a great time to pursue the MBA. Definitely feel like there's great momentum there. One of the great benefits, again, I sort of touched on it earlier, opportunities for our admissions team to engage with candidates all over with virtual. We've really rolled that out with our incoming class and have been having a lot of virtual engagement since April around career, around transitioning to the US, especially for our international students. And so it's been wonderful to see, those relationships getting so strong. And then, we haven't yet started international student orientation, kicks off this Sunday. And so it will be that wonderful moment of seeing everyone in person together and just, gosh, such momentum and energy around Charlottesville, around Darden. So.
Did you think, Naz, that some of the characteristics that you're all describing, that underlying determination, plans have had to be postponed, there's been tremendous uncertainty, are those characteristics that you're then able to sort of pick up in an application? This is beyond GPA and GMAT test scores, but that you're able to get that sort of underlying sense of a person and those characteristics.
Absolutely. I think that when we're talking to candidates, all of us here today, there are the basic metrics of test scores, GPA, professional experience, but there's a lot that goes into also understanding the culture fit for that student and how well they'll do, not only while they're in the program, but as future brand ambassadors. And so one of the big components that we're always looking for is that grit component. And I think that's a testament to what this last year has demonstrated is, I think, really weeded out those who have that grit, whether they're international students or whether they are, are underrepresented minorities, trying to figure out how, what qualities really make for us not only a successful student, but a future successful leader. And so I think more often than not, pre-pandemic, we've realized that there are some qualities that we, as the admissions team, we've really focused on. And the common denominator, I think the best way to put it is grit, because I think that really resonates well amongst, not only how well they'll be engaged in the classroom, how well they'll be engaged with the career seeking process, and how engaged they'll be as alums and community partners for years to come.
Reassure me, Sherry, that one of my favorite questions, the 25 random things that you ask applicants at Fuqua, to share with you. I hope that's on the menu for the coming admissions cycle. Of course, they're not random things. It's different experiences and what a candidate shares. Do you find that as a question, it tends to be very revealing about personality, curiosity, grit that Naz was describing? You must pick up a tremendous amount with a question like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is, in some respects, that is the question that allows people to differentiate themselves and to have their personality and their lived experiences come through, whereas that wouldn't otherwise in the other aspects of the application. And so we really encourage students to use that to be vulnerable, to be a little innovative, be creative, have some fun with it. We encourage people to ask their family and friends, like, what are the things about me, right, that are interesting or that I should think about, right? And so there's a number of different ways that people can approach it. They should approach it thoughtfully, use the real estate wisely, probably not focus so much on the professional, because the random facts should be random. It should allow us to see your personality, your thought process, your philosophy on life, your fears, your passions, your, just the quirkiness of what life has presented for you, and that is only unique to you. And it's the one aspect of our application that really can't be replicated by anyone else, right? If you really take some time to put into that essay, it will not be like any other person, who has applied. And so, especially we coach people, especially people who are in industries that are very well known, consulting, banking, right, where there's going to be many people who have the similar experiences. Really use that 25 random facts as a way to truly differentiate yourself and have your personality come through and shine through. And it really allows us to understand, your level of belonging, what you're seeking in terms of belonging, and what we're able to offer. I think lately I've been trying to not use the word fit, but use the word thriving, use the word belonging. And we're hoping that this particular essay allows people to show us their authentic, true self, so that we can see how they might truly thrive in our community, and vice versa as well. So, hopefully people continue to have a lot of fun with it, because it's definitely, an essay that's here to stay for a while.
I guess if we had a lot of fun and took the next 35 minutes to 25 random things about all four of you, would have 100 completely different things, which also illustrates in an application, there are no wrong answers, they're your answers as a candidate. Melissa, that must be something that's very important to you, to really be able to then witness that sense of self and the introspection that a candidate has put into their application.
Absolutely. And we always are talking to candidates about how important it is to take some time to really reflect on their journey so far prior to starting their application. That especially in a culture where you can kind of bring anything up on an app and get it at your door in less than an hour, there may be this notion that, well, I can do that in a weekend. And I think everyone would agree, I can usually tell if somebody has whipped through an application and not spent time reflecting. And it's really a disservice to the candidate. It really sells them short in terms of how they compare to what we are looking for. And I'm always cautious about telling people, we're not comparing you to the other candidates. We're kind of comparing you to the Goizueta student who does very well, as Sherry said, who thrives here, who's a great contributor, who leaves a legacy. So it's not so much that you're competing against all the other consultants who are applying this year, or all the other candidates who are applying this year. It's, are you someone who we see as a person who will add value to our community and do well academically and socially, and, as I said earlier, leave a legacy. That kind of, to make that come to life on a page or in an interview, you have to have thought about where you've been and where you want to go, and why the MBA experience is going to be a part of your story. Why do you want that? Why is this how you've chosen to invest your time and your energy and your money? So I definitely think that reflection piece is a really important part. The candidates who are watching right now, you have plenty of time. There's round one to apply in, but don't feel like there's an edge applying in round one. That's why we have multiple rounds. If you want to take the fall to do your due diligence and reflect on yourself and be able to express that really well, round two is a great option for you. But take the time that you need to do well with the application process.
Right. One of our viewers has written and said, you're really excited to find out more about the Leadership Lab. We've got that great interview that talks about the Accelerated Leadership Center at Goizueta. Every time I do these Center Court events, the joy that I have finding out more about your programs and encouraging that level of research. So Whitney, of course, your detective work, when you look at that initial resume, and of course, each of you very selective programs, do you sometimes see candidates sort of trying too hard to put into that one-page document, beyond job titles, the sense of accomplishment, and that can go astray? What are you really trying to capture in a resume? Is it a sense of progression?
Definitely a sense of progression. It is In general, with candidates applying to our full-time, we do encourage that one-page resume. So it's limited real estate and there's only so much you can put there. But as with the resume and the application in general, this is definitely an exercise in editing and making sure that you are highlighting what you feel is most important to share with the admissions committee. So I think probably myself and others on this panel, the resume can be that great snapshot of where a candidate has been, get a sense of their academic background as well as their professional progression. And that could be a great sort of overview as you begin to review the application, where you're going to go and hear and learn more in depth in these areas. But, you know, there's plenty of templates out there, suggestions for a business school resume. So there's no one particular format that we're looking for, but I think good information out there. So then it becomes your opportunity to make sure you are showing that progression, being able to quantify where you can, the results, the roles that you've had and what you've done in those roles. I also think it can be that great place to share a little bit of your personality, your involvement, what you do outside of work and what you've done outside of your academic work. So we definitely enjoy seeing a little personality coming through, and I think there is that space to do that.
Well, within our Olympic theme now, so of course, this week we were talking before we went live of Olympians that have applied to business school, but even beyond that level of sporting excellence, it can very often be those other activities beyond work that are so demonstrative. If someone did get up at 4:30 every morning to go training, or do you find there are all of these wonderful clues in a resume that speak volumes about an individual and their passions?
Absolutely. I think it's more about, the depth and the breadth than it is, just looking at something on a piece of paper. And so in fact, I always tell candidates, when you're applying to us and you're confined by that one page, and if you need a little bit more, that's okay. But really for us, it's how can your story appear in words from that piece of paper? And I think that it's important to if you don't have the timelines, 2 years here, 2 years there, it's really important to kind of think of what did you learn from each one of these experiences. And I think it's a combination of what Melissa and Whitney were talking about, right? It's the reflection piece coupled with being able to really articulate at a high level what is the most valuable experiences that you've had to showcase in limited real estate. But most certainly, I think that looking at the activities, the other involvement, the other things that have taken your time, we've had tons of students, non-traditional students, as I know we all are seeing more and more, who worked while doing their undergraduate degrees, and how have they been able to balance that? And so it's about the quality over the quantity as well. And I think that's a common denominator, that it's being able to get that from an applicant, because I think that the biggest hurdle is being able to get that applicant from submitting something that they think they want us to see versus something that is truly reflective of what they've done. And I think that for all of us, hopefully I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, it really boils down to that holistic review, and the better we can understand all of the components that have pulled at who you are today and what you've done today or up to this point to get to this, juncture of wanting to get an MBA. That's what we want to know.
Right. Within the theme of leadership for this festival, a few hours from now, the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, will be announcing, no doubt, eye-watering results for another quarter. He's a very successful, very thoughtful industry leader. He's a Duke MBA. But Sherry, for the 26, 27-year-old thinking about business school and thinking, is that the leadership standard? Somehow I have to portray this. There are so many ways to be able to share leadership without being the CEO of a major tech firm. What's your advice to candidates to be able to sort of break that down, and whether it's in the community through their academic experience or obviously their professional path, to be able to demonstrate the leadership qualities or the potential for leadership that you're looking for?
And I think that potential is a key word. So, and I think people can lead in very different ways. You can lead you don't have to necessarily be in a position where you have direct reports to lead, right? You can lead from the side, you can lead from, there are folks who could demonstrate leadership positions or capacity for leadership, and they don't manage anyone, right? And so I think there's a lot, first of all, understanding and recognizing there's a lot of different ways in which you can demonstrate leadership. Thinking about the contributions you have to the culture of your organization, and how have you taken initiative or stepped out of your comfort zone to give of yourself or to advocate for someone else, regardless of whether or not, regardless of where that person is in terms of the hierarchy. I think in the end, there are ways to demonstrate leadership, on the application, in your resume, but also in the interview as well. So there's different parts of the application process where you can make known how you've demonstrated leadership, how you've demonstrated getting involved. And again, I think leadership is just about being involved in something that you care about, that you're passionate about, and that you're willing to step up and step out and stretch beyond yourself. So, thinking about times in which you've gone beyond, out of your comfort zone, thinking about times in which you had difficult situations that you've had to maneuver through and manage through. How did you do that? Talk about how you've shown empathy, how you've taken initiative, how you've been a servant leader. I mean, today's leadership style is very different than the 80s and 90s, right? It's about collaborative leadership. It's about inclusive leadership. It's about servant leadership. And servant leadership is, how do you support others, right? How do you support your team? How do you motivate? I mean, most of my day is getting work done through others. And so the only way for me to do that is to make sure that my team stays motivated and advocating for resources so that they can do what they do best, right? And so so if you break down these notions of leadership into what are the actions that leaders take in order to demonstrate support and to move an organization forward, like those are the things that you can then demonstrate in your own lived experiences, right? Or that you can demonstrate in terms of the potential that you have based on the experiences that you've been able to have afforded to you. So I think it's not this lofty word leader. It's really breaking it down to what does that mean? How is that demonstrated? And then thinking about your own lived experiences and how does that show up in your life, regardless of whether or not it's in a professional capacity, a personal capacity, right? Within your community or not. I mean, there's all different, we all have the potential to be leaders.
And with that potential, Melissa, your colleague Leanne was sharing the remarkable number of sort of individual coaching hours that Goizueta students will enjoy, holding up that mirror to their the individual characteristics, how they can develop perhaps their leadership style. But in the application, it's not that they have to have all of the answers, because that's something that's going to be part and parcel of the MBA experience that you'll be giving them. So they can show perhaps vulnerability, times when they weren't successful, much as the idea we must always show our successes, but you're going to learn just as much from the challenges that they faced.
And I think that's a really important and good point, because it's unrealistic to think that every candidate is going to come to us with a fully blown resume that is chocked full of these experiences. And one of the great things about the reflection piece that we talked about earlier is that it does give you the opportunity to kind of think about times when you haven't been successful and how you learned from that, and also where you have gaps. I mean, if you knew everything and had everything all on lock, you wouldn't need an MBA. That's part of our job. And that's, when non-traditional candidates are like, oh, I didn't take any business courses in undergrad. I'm like, that's why you're getting an MBA, so that you can fill in those gaps. But candidates who have their awareness about where their gaps are and where they've had challenges and can speak to those in ways that demonstrate, I'm ready to grow. I've already seen potential in myself, and I have seen great leaders and great mentors in my work or in my community that I want to be like. Show me how to be like that. We can do that. We can help you move down that path more quickly than you could on your own, because of the depth of our faculty, because of the experiences that you'll have. And, all of the schools offering these experiential learning opportunities. When we take our students out on a sailboat in the British Virgin Islands as a part of a leadership module, it's not so they can become great sailors. It's so that they can put into practice in a real life experience the leadership qualities that we've been talking about in the classroom. And it's going to be okay if they aren't perfect at it. They are at least going to get some repetitions on using those skills through the experiences that we're offering. And so, you know, students do, it's fine if you don't have a perfect resume, if you don't, but it is important that you can speak to, I want to grow. And this is why I think your school will help me to grow. You know, that development piece and being vulnerable is really important and something that we look for, that honesty and integrity in knowing where you are and where you want to go and how the MBA journey will help you with that.
Right. As we look forward to the coming year, and of course, candidates that again can enjoy campus visit, I think we'd all like to sign up for auditing classes on a sailboat in the British Virgin Islands. That sounds like, oh, no. Yeah, we'll be there. Within that journey, Whitney, with Donna and the rest of the team at Darden, you know, you have this constant dialogue with your colleagues in career services, and often applicants might share perhaps a particular company that they want to work for, that this sort of future role that they're looking for. But I mean, Darden graduates are going to enjoy so many opportunities and, you know, career paths. So is the application more thinking about the sort of the person and the leader that they want to develop into rather than fixating on a particular role?
Yeah, exactly, Matt. You know, our viewpoint in terms of career aspirations is that this is a lifetime, you know, thinking about what skills, where you need to further develop, thinking about where you want to put your energy and your passions. That first job after that internship and that first job after you graduate are certainly very top of mind and what candidates are often thinking about, but there is likely a very long career ahead of you. And so we at Darden are really always thinking about how do we help our students be prepared for that, to develop those skills, to understand the resources, obviously be a part of an incredible network. So from an admissions perspective, when we ask about your career goals, it's really to get a sense for that reflection piece, as Melissa has touched on, that sense of direction. We're less concerned about exactly where you want to go, but more, have you thought about where you've been? What are the skills? What are those transferable skills that would, you know, help you be successful in that next role? Maybe it's a longer term goal and seeing you think about some of those interim steps to help you get there. So we're just really interested in getting more of a sense of the why behind your career goals and that thought process. As candidates are thinking about business school and researching where they may want to go, we also encourage them to be talking to people doing those jobs that you're interested in, understanding more about those companies, those industries, those functional roles. What are the experiences, skills that you can gain through an MBA that would potentially position you to pursue that after you graduate? So that's a whole lot, you know, that we're sort of looking for, but you know, I definitely encourage candidates not to get too hyper focused on that one job or that one company, because you're coming to business school to explore, to be exposed to so many things that you may not have even realized were out there. And then at the other end of that spectrum, you know, it can be very challenging just because of the pace and sort of all these layered academics and career and social to come in totally wide open. So it's somewhere in between. And we hope that going through this admissions process, it's also helping you go through from a career search and beginning those conversations and that research.
Right. So I mean, quite daunting when you begin that process. But I mean, as you sort of break it down, you know, there you are in your mid to late 20s, early 30s, and stepping back, you know, thinking about business school and the role that it will play. So embracing this gift of applying to business school. Can you tell, perhaps not whether a candidate has enjoyed this opportunity, but certainly embraced it and really invested in it?
No, absolutely. We always have the candidates that we work with that you can tell they have the grit, they have they're all in and they want to learn. And in fact, some of the best things that we've been able to kind of learn about our candidates early on is through just the various events that we've hosted, professional development opportunities, who's engaging in what earlier on. Because I think it actually boils down to how coachable is that person and how can we get them to where they want to be. And I think that when we're talking about from the applicant perspective, right, they don't know what they don't know, but as long as they're coachable and they're excited and eager and, and jazzed about coming and participating in our ethical leadership or our storytelling and impact, seminar or our mindful leadership seminar series, all of these types of things, are ways for us to kind of early on start assessing the candidate and that, once again, going back to that notion of, are they ready to do this? And have they really put forth the energy, the sweat equity that it takes to say, this is why an MBA at this point is valuable. I don't have, I don't have a crystal ball, right? So, I think that coachability component is how well will they fare in kind of varying waters, and as these courses are ebbing and flowing, and they might really like something or they hate something. Maybe not hate, but so I think that it goes back to being flexible and coachable as the big component. And so that's what we try to weed out in the application process. So everybody who's thinking about applying today, think about maybe there is that target company or that functional area, but also be open to other opportunities, because this is your time in an MBA program to really explore who you are and what kind of leader and what types of roles you want to do, maybe for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or whatever that might be.
Yeah. We've talked about potential, and Sherry, you were sort of thinking about leadership styles of the late 90s. The suits were very different too back in the day versus this far more sort of collaborative style. Now, you're then inviting a third party, a recommender, to share their perspectives on the potential of an applicant. You have early decision deadlines that'll be coming up in just a few weeks. How do you encourage applicants to sort of frame that discussion with a recommender, and the sort of insights that really are going to be helpful to you in the admissions committee to better understand this applicant?
Yeah, good question. So, we recommend that, you sit down with the person that you're going to, first of all, choose the person wisely. Don't assume, ask the question, do you have time to do this? Would you give me a positive one, But I think, I do think that there's value in understanding the constructive aspects too. Where are the areas of growth and development? And so as part of the questionnaire, we participate in GMAC's common letter of recommendation. That's what the recommenders fill out. But there are areas that try and allow the recommender to evaluate the abilities and the interpersonal skills, not just the capabilities and technical expertise of the applicant. But what we're trying to understand is this notion of, have they grown, but then are they also, like Anna said, coachable, right? Are they self-aware? Are they receptive to feedback, right? So, in an MBA program, you're among a number of really high performers. And so, are you open to feedback? Are you open to an awareness that you don't know everything? There are some things that you're really good at. There's some things that you can still grow and develop. And where are those gaps? And are you open to the possibility of focusing with intention on those areas? I always say that, business school is a microcosm of the real world. So they're going to, everything you find in the real world, you're going to find in business school. But it's how do you manage through that process? What's the attitude that you have along the journey? How open are you? How vulnerable are you? And the hope is that, from a recommender's perspective, we're getting insights from a third party that give us a sense for the way in which that person will play out and show up in an MBA program. It's all fair game to sit down with your recommender and say, hey, let me talk to you about my journey. Let me talk to you about the areas in which I've performed well, the areas, the feedback that I've gotten from other managers in the past, if that perhaps that person wasn't your manager. And just so you understand, then the reasons and rationales to why I want the MBA. So that person has a more holistic view and context for your rationale. And that hopefully then, given the experiences that they have with you, will give them a better sense of exactly how to approach that recommendation that they're writing. It's not a gotcha. We're not looking only for negatives, right? We're looking for a really realistic, objective, third-party perspective on your experiences, but also your future perspective, potential as well, right? And so hopefully people understand that, but I do think it's important to prepare your recommender so that they are advocating and providing the best recommendations that they possibly can, given the experiences that they've had with you.
Well, for that, you're clearly striking a chord with our audience. Someone's writing in saying, please make these available for later offline viewing. There will be on the Poets and Quants YouTube channel, so you can watch this as many times as, I think that's a reflection on the sort of advice and encouragement that all of you are sharing. One of the wonderful questions, Melissa, I'm going to turn it just a little bit. Liz has written in to say, what are some of the things that your MBA students in the program do for fun? The things that you can publicly disclose, of course. But let me take that a step further, because of course there are so many things, and the clubs and the treks and all of these, the British Virgin Islands, all of these activities that go beyond the MBA classroom. As applicants are finding out more about your school, I mean, that's just a great way to really get a sense of the school and the sort of experience that they can look forward to, and the fun that will come with the learning too.
It is an immersive experience for those of the audience who are looking at full-time programs. It is a very immersive experience, and we have a 1-year MBA and a 2-year MBA, and with both of those, there is a lot to choose from. And I do think that a student who comes into it without having thought about their own personal goals and what they're hoping to get out of business school can quickly become overwhelmed by all the options, and everything seems amazing, from the wine club to the consulting club to the global trips to the list goes on. And I want to take this class, and well, this isn't really something I'm interested in, but everybody says this is just an amazing class. There's room to do a lot of things in a year or in 2 years, but there isn't room to do everything. And I think it is important to have reflected prior to coming to business school, but then to periodically and to, with discipline, think about what you are getting out of the experiences that you are signing up for, and what part of you talked about life balance right at the beginning of the call. MBA students need that as well. And so your academics are absolutely important. Your extracurriculars or co-curricular activities are absolutely important, but so is your social life and your mental health. And so understanding where you are getting more and what is kind of just noise and something that, yeah, that is really cool, but honestly, it's not helping me grow. It's not feeding me, socially, and it's not helping me achieve my goals. And I'm super happy for my classmates who are on the golf course doing whatever, but I don't need to golf. It's not my thing. That's okay. It is okay to understand that. But I think there is a discipline to getting the very most that you can out of an MBA program. And it's about knowing what your goals are and what things are going to be best for you as an individual, and knowing yourself. And that's kind of the whole process of the application as well. It's know yourself, be honest about who you are. That's what we're looking for. And to continue that on as a student, to be honest with yourself and to understand what is best for you.
With all of the ways that we've had to adapt, Whitney, in the last 18 months, and how applicants have been able to connect with the schools, we again hope that that the year ahead we'll see much more opportunity to travel, to come and visit the schools. But with all of the different initiatives that you've taken at Darden, is there one sort of area of research, or just as candidates are finding out more about all of your schools, one thing that you would sort of say, if there's one thing that you do to find out more about the school it's this, is it auditing a class? Is it talking with alumni, getting that sense of all of the different fun things that they can also be doing?
Yeah, hard to boil it down to one, certainly, but there's so many different ways that you can learn about schools, connecting with members of their community, blogs, virtual events, in-person events. We're working towards welcoming prospective students to the Darden grounds in this upcoming year. So lots of different ways to connect. And I'm always struck by just those connections, those conversations, how powerful they can be to help illuminate just more of the experience. And all of that is helping you as prospective students out there get more of a sense for what this experience can be, what am I drawn to, what am I excited about, and get more of a feel of that culture, of that community. Where is a place that you will thrive, where you'll be supported and challenged? I'm really proud of maybe two things. The Experience Darden podcast, that was my main tip this past year, especially when we weren't able to welcome visitors. And those were in-depth interviews with a myriad of members of our community. So that opportunity to go deeper, hear someone's experience, whatever that may be, from the student experience, alumni, staff, and faculty. So the Experience Darden podcast. And then we in admissions, I think we're always trying to think of new ways that we can engage with candidates. And so this past summer and this past month, we've been rolling out some workshops. And so breaking down parts of the application with a smaller group of candidates and just kind of talking through how do you shape your narrative and other things like that. And just for me, that's been fun. It's just sort of with a smaller group of people kind of tackling some of these frequently asked questions and breaking things down in a way that hopefully makes it a little bit more accessible.
Right. As here we are, 18 months after the start of a global pandemic. It has involved loss, it has involved sacrifice. Everyone has faced different and personal challenges. So if we sort of rise above that and say, invest in yourself. Why now? Why this year? Perhaps why next year? But why business school? As people emerge from such a life-changing 18 months and have had the chance to reflect on what they really want, what would your answer be?
Why not? No, I mean, actually, I think I think if anything, this last year has demonstrated that so much can change so quickly, and I think that that's the core of our curriculum, is how to be adaptable when life changes. It's funny that when I talk to our alums, more often than not, they continue to tell me what was most reflective or the biggest takeaways of their MBA program was not just learning kind of the basics of law of supply and demand, although of course some econ faculty is going to come back and surprise me right now and smack me for saying that. But I think that for the experience itself, the relationships that are built in an MBA program, the connections being made, the transformative and transferable skill set that is taught, this is the time to embrace those, because as we've seen over this last 18 months, the skill sets that we didn't possess and how quickly the world has changed is a testament to how quickly we need to change, whether we're looking to kind of reposition ourselves for a new role or to grow within our current roles. So I think, if anything, this last year has demonstrated where gaps can be and how we can really embrace those and learn from them and really just come out ahead. So I think that this is an amazing time to think about doing an MBA and to really immerse yourself in the experiences and being able to come to our campuses and participate in global immersion experiences and case competitions and all of these things outside of the classroom to really make those connections of how you can be utilizing what you're learning in the classroom to the ever-changing business world.
Right. Sherry, your career has focused on admission. It hasn't been about rejection. It's been about admitting great individuals that will bring so much to your school. As you reflect on this, you've spoken about how alumni have been so sensitive. How can I support, the current class? Do you, as you look at those individuals that you've given this opportunity, all of the apprehension they might have had on day one, and then the journey that they enjoy over those 2 years, is there a common thread of something that you see from, yes, we've offered them a place, and then you get to watch this wonderful story unfolding? It must be incredibly rewarding, your work.
Yes, it absolutely is. And if you ask anyone on our team, that is usually the one thing that they're going to say is that, you know, they do this. It's a mission. It's more than just a job, but they do it because of the transformation that they can see in individuals and in the small role that they have, right, in creating these opportunities for people to explore and to create new opportunities for themselves and their families. If I were to, you know, think about it, I would say because our student body in many of the schools here, the students are very engaged. It's a very student-driven. At Fuqua, it's a very student-driven community, and so for me, it's really wonderful to see people stepping out of their comfort zone and exploring their own sense of vulnerability, their own sense of their voice, finding their voice. So when you see, you know, individuals who come in with a level of confidence, but not really knowing what they don't know, and then, you know, upon graduation, they really have done amazing things in addition to their own studies, right? And trying to secure an internship and secure a job. They've also contributed to leaving a legacy in an institutionalizing some idea that they had. So we've had people, like I said, we have a gender equity working group, and these were a series of female students who said, hey, we want to be able to do more around helping to educate our classmates around mental health and sexual awareness, you know, and all kinds of issues that help to ensure that women feel included. And these are folks who started, you know, a few years ago, and this particular group is still standing, and it's a legacy, and it's institutionalized, and it's, you know, being passed down to future generations in terms of the work that we do. And so for me, it's seeing what people leave behind, the fact that they are willing to give so much of themselves at a time where they also are trying to explore and to find themselves, you know, in a new way. That they are also willing to give back to the institution. I think that is just wonderful. And I love to see that. And I know that our alumni, you know, we really appreciate our alumni as a result of that, because of how much they're willing to give of themselves at a time where they're also trying to explore what's possible for themselves.
Right. Well, that sense of gratitude, that sense of giving back is something that I've experienced in talking to the alumni of all of your schools. And I think it holds up a mirror to you, to your teams, with the commitment and the talent with which all four of you do your jobs, you know, seeing the potential in these individuals. So to have joined us at Centre Court, you know, it's always a real pleasure for me. And I know that with all of those that are viewing, those that are currently on the Zoom will no doubt want to join you in those private chat rooms that we have organized afterwards. But equally, if you're now catching this on YouTube at a later stage, I think you all get a sense of the warmth and the professionalism and the real commitment that our panel bring to their work. I encourage you to reach out to them, to their colleagues, to the schools, find out where business school fits in your journey. But Melissa, Whitney, Naz and Shari, thank you for a really wonderful panel. Enjoy the rest of your day talking to the attendees of Centre Court, and I'm delighted that you're with us.